All right, good evening. Can I have a motion to call the meeting to order?
I make it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you guys very much. Thanks for your patience. I will turn it over to Mr. Vine.
Yes, thanks, Chief. We have two presentations, first being a student one, so I'm going to introduce Ms. Unit.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm really delighted to turn this evening's presentation over to the John Marshall PE teaching staff and our fifth grade representatives who will be talking to you this evening about the happenings at John Marshall under wellness, health, and PE. Right.
Welcome, guys.
Good evening, Board of Education members, administration, and community members. On behalf of Coach Santa, Coach Steve, Coach Rivera, Coach Erickson, and I, we would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share with you some of the really exciting and new fun things that we have been doing in our classes, wellness club wise, physical education wise, and health wise.
Hello, my name is Ray. I am a member of the Wellness Club at John Marshall. For school on Monday or Tuesday morning, Wellness Club gives students opportunities to health and wellness at participating in fitness games. They are so much fun. Exercise, getting enough sleep, and eating healthy food are all at the end of each meeting, we make healthy smoothies. Some ingredients we add are berries, avocados, potatoes, and bananas. We're so lucky to have a wellness club. It gives us a chance to compete and learn about some of the topics we cover include emotion and self-improvement. My favorite so far has been watching Inside Out. The students are joining the activity of strange. We choose to do a better walk. We should display our favorite foods, what activities we like to read, and something we are grateful for. They help us make connections to others. This is my show. Hello, my name is Kyle. Sources of strength has helped us identify trusted adults. A trusted adult is someone others can trust to any time. My trusted adult is my mom because she has always been there for me. I talk to her about my feelings and thoughts and she never judges me. She is my safe place and a good listener. Did you know that we are celebrating PS I Love You Day in February? The whole school is going to World Football to remind everyone that they are not alone, that they are never alone. We hear the high school students are coming to visit and have fun sources of strength, games, and activities planned for us. We can't wait. CE class, we have been learning new ways to stay fit. Dance, hockey, and minute to win it challenges are just a few of the activities we have been working on. We have learned a few new dances this year, such as the cha-cha slide and the macarena. Our kindergarten friends even performed the Cotton Eye Joe at our school meeting. These are the hockey sticks and jerseys that the Near Bounders donated to us last year. We have been learning to dribble, pass, and shoot on our goals. Hockey is fun because it is fast-paced, exciting, and teaching us teamwork. Minute to win it activities help us set goals and challenge ourselves. I learned a cool trick using a bucket, scarf, and a phone. In 1 minute, I did this trick 15 times. We would like to thank you for having us here tonight and for all the new opportunities that you help provide us with at our school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More to come.
Bye-bye. Give these guys a chance to get themselves. We lost everyone. Almost.
I guess there are not as many people here about new budget code.
No. Yeah. Sorry, Sam. Sorry, Sam.
I want to introduce, I'll introduce Assistant Superintendent for Business, Sam Schneider. Sam's going to provide an overview of our school budget and show you how the process is going to begin and where we are.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That was very uplifting. And now I have some very downlifting news to show you. So let's go through the budget. So we have a slightly new process for the budget this year in that we are dealing with some new budget codes and organization. I want to walk the board through that. We're going to talk about the budget formation process, some significant challenges that we are looking at for this year, and a brief explanation of tax cap law and where we go from here. So under the organization of budget codes, the New York State Comptroller publishes what they call a chart of accounts. It's a universal chart of accounts that is supposed to be used in every municipality across the state. So you can look at our budget, you can look at a budget for a school district in Chautauqua County, you can look at a budget anywhere, and it's always the same chart of accounts. Our chart of accounts has, up until this point, moved a little bit away from where that needs to be. So we have reformed the process and we are instituting a new chart of accounts beginning July 1. The budget that you're going to look at over the next few months is going to be with these new budget codes. So we're trying our best in the formation of this to show you what we spent last year as what we spent this year. Sometimes we have to shoehorn two codes together, so it's not going to be a perfect matchup, but we're trying to come as close as possible. So each expenditure line in the budget has a 13-digit code. It's broken up to 4 categories: function, object, location, program. You can see how I've arranged there. Function is a general area of the budget, and in essence, it works like this. If it starts with a 1, it's central support. That's Adam's office, my office, buildings and grounds. 2 is instruction. So Tim is in instruction, all the teachers, all the principals. 5 is transportation, and 9 is either benefits or debt service. And you can see we have a selection of some of the function codes there. Object, which is the next 3 digits, has to do with either salary, equipment, contractual, BOCES, debt service, or benefits. And you can see we have a selection there. And by reading these codes, you can go to any school district, as I said, in New York, and you end up being able to understand the same language across the state. Location is the next digits. Now, we have 3 buildings, a transportation garage and district-wide. We've had until this point at least 8 location codes. I'm not sure how we end up with 8 when we only have 3 buildings, district-wide and transportation. So we're going to go with those. And program, these are some of our program areas. So we have a little quiz here. So this is an example budget code. And you can see 2110 refers to regular school, 200 is equipment, 01 is going to be East Hampton High School, and 2320 is science. So this has to do with equipment purchase for the science program at East Hampton High School. And anybody who has our chart of accounts is going to be able to read that no matter where they are. All right, the budget formation process. So obviously it begins with led by Adam and the district administration. We consult with the staff, with the principals, with the administrators to determine where things are working, where things need improvement, how we want to move forward from there. The administration gathers pricing, contractual obligations, estimates for the spending plan, and then the board reviews these estimates, which is going to happen over the next few months. There's 2 sides to every budget that everyone needs to understand. The expenditure plan, that's what's voted on by the electorate in May, what we're going to spend. The revenue plan is determined by the board, how we're going to pay for that. The budget, as I've said to Tim many times, is the budget is aspirational and it evolves as the year goes on. We have 3 significant budget challenges that I just want to touch on this evening: health insurance, tax anticipation note interest, and retirement system costs. Let's talk about health insurance first. We participate in the New York State Health Insurance Program. It's called Empire NISHIP. It's used by New York State employees and municipalities from school districts to towns, villages, and others all across the state. NISHIP in Albany sets the rates in December for the following 12 months of the year. So the rates we are living with now were set last month. So when we make our budget, we have to make a good faith estimate as to what the rates are going to be for the back half of the year. I know exactly what it's going to cost us from July, the start of our fiscal year, until December. The question mark is what it's going to cost us from January to the following June. The rate increases this year are astronomical. This chart, and I know it's very small, and I apologize for that, shows where health insurance costs have gone from 1999 to 2023. So we have 24 years. And in 24 years, you will see that health insurance has increased for family coverage 497%. Now, you can sit here and say, there's no way that that's going to happen in 2047. But I guarantee you in 1999, nobody thought that in 2023, we'd be paying $38,110.64 for health insurance, which means if we carried that same escalation out until 2047, by which point I will be retired, health insurance for family coverage is going to be just shy of $190,000 a year. And that is something that we need to think about as we think about next year's budget and future year's budget, is what is the impact of health insurance? Health insurance costs are negotiated by contract with our unions. The rate is set by NISHIP. How much employees pay is set by negotiated contract. It's not subject to arbitrary changes. You can see our costs are rising. The costs are going up very much. Health insurance for family coverage for active employees went up 14.92% this year. For retirees, certain class of retirees, the health insurance costs went up 22.5%, which is an incredible increase driven by a number of factors that we don't need to go into here. But you can see that more and more of our budget is taken up by health insurance and the cost thereon. You can see a little snapshot of it right there. The second major budgetary impact I want to talk to you about is the tax anticipation note. In Suffolk County, we receive our revenues through the remittance of property tax, which happens primarily between the last week in December and middle of June. Aside from that 6 months, the other 6 months of the year, we have no money coming in, but we still have money going out. People want to be paid, vendors want to be paid, health insurance wants to be paid. So in order to bridge that gap, we issue debt. It's called the tax anticipation note. We have an incredible bond rating. It's AAA. There are very few school districts that have that. But nevertheless, like everything else, interest rates are up. Last year, we borrowed about 1.5%. This year, we're borrowing at 2.73%. You can see in the last few years how our interest rates have gone up. And you can see we've had to borrow more money each year because our budget has gone up. So we do, in the business office, we do a cash flow projection to determine how much money we need to bridge the gap. And what would happen if we did not borrow that money, we would obviously be bankrupt. So we borrow the money to get through until the property taxes start coming in. Last year, we borrowed 15 million and we paid $161,000 in interest. This year, we had about 16 million and we're paying $408,000 in interest. I'm estimating next year, we're looking at $450,000 of interest. So right there, that's more than $250,000 that's not in this year's budget that we have to come up for next year's budget.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have tried to do to save money is I split the TAN in two. We needed 16 million. We borrowed it in two notes, both in around October. 6 million payable at the end of February, 10 million payable at the end of June. So I can get us through February, money is in, I can pay back the 6 million. That picked up some interest and savings, which were only borrowing a larger portion for a longer period. But even despite that, that's where we're going with tax anticipation interest. The third big budgetary problem is pension costs. So pension costs for teachers, administrators, civil servants are set by two different retirement systems, teachers' retirement system and New York State employees' retirement system. We commonly call these TRS and ERS. System contribution rates are set by the system and they work off of a 5-year rolling average based on how these pension plans do with their investments. They are astronomically large pension plans, billions of dollars invested by professional money managers. The New York State Constitution requires that they're funded at 104% of their liability. So if everybody retired today, they would have enough money to pay everybody off. Obviously, that doesn't happen, but that's what the Constitution requires. When the stock market does poorly, the employers have to make up the difference. You pay a percentage of somebody's salary. So you can see in the early 80s, when times were tough in the economy, employers are paying 20% of somebody's salary on top of their regular salary, had to go to the pension system. In the dot-com era, before the bust, the contribution rate was below 1. We're estimating next year that the contribution rate for TRS is actually going to go down by about 0.3 of a percentage point on the contribution rate. That doesn't mean how much we pay. It means we multiply the salaries that are eligible for that times the contribution rate. The ERS rate is going up by 2 percentage points, which is a very large increase in actual cash we have to come up with. And then we have is always Social Security, which is steady. So you can see right there on the right-hand side, that shows you where I'm estimating our pension costs are going to be. These are mandatory payments that we have to make. To add the trick into all this, TRS runs on the same fiscal year as we do. ERS runs on a fiscal year that starts April 1st and ends March 31st. So I have to guess where the contribution rate is going to go for the last 3 months of the year in order to make the amount. So the ERS number is slightly higher than the math dictates, because I'm predicting it's going to go up yet again. There actually is a fourth point that we just got this afternoon that Adam and I thought we should mention. Our insurance for property casualty liability, we are insured through NYSER, New York State Insurance Reciprocal. It's a cooperative of school districts across the state. They're estimating that the insurance rates are up 10 to 15% next year, which is just another very difficult budget number to swallow. I want to briefly talk about the tax cap law. We're in more than a decade into it, but I just want to briefly touch on it if anyone is new to it. The tax cap law essentially says the levy can increase by no more than 2% or CPI. This year it's 2% plus certain exemptions. And the exemptions are that we need to be concerned about are the capital tax levy, which is the amount of money that has to be raised to pay debt service and bus purchases after state aid is applied. This is how you calculate the property tax cap. As you can see on the side, the main column, the main box on the left shows the property tax cap calculation. On the right, I show how you arrive at the property at the tax at the capital levy cost. There's several key components in calculating the capital tax levy that are not yet published, which is why we have question marks. We have to file this with the state at the end of February. So I'm going to ask the board on February 7th to approve these calculations and essentially make an adoption so I can file it with the state. The general concept is that we're not going to exceed the tax cap, although the board still can choose to exceed the property tax cap should it wish to. The state likes to see a preliminary look at where we stand, and so I'm going to ask the board to approve these calculations before we file that designation. Next steps, we're going to continue to evaluate where we stand. We have to wait and see what the legislature is going to do in terms of state aid. We're still waiting for the governor's budget, which comes out probably this week or next week. And then we see where we go from there. And then over the next few board meetings, we have the various presentations with our incredibly talented administrative staff are going to present their budgets to you. You can see the schedule there. This all leads into the May 16th budget vote where the budget goes to the voters for approval. I know we went through a lot real fast there. And if you have any questions.
I have just a question. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
You know, I know that they passed a law making it a little bit easier. When I first started on the school board, we were hit with really astonishing rates in TRS back then. And those were the days where the tax cap was first implemented. It was, we ran into a lot of trouble, but since then they've implemented trust. We have a reserve for ERS. Can you talk? Right now we have a reserve, and how much do we have in it for the TRS?
I can't tell you off the top of my head how much is in it, and the reserves are great. We're using a portion of the reserves in this year's budget. The problem with any reserve is twofold. You have to use it the following year, or you have to substitute that money with something else, and there's nothing else except property taxes, and you have to replenish that reserve or it runs dry. So with it's very easy to close the budget gap by appropriating additional money out of the reserve. But then if you can't do that again the following year, you have a true deficit, and then you either have to lean on the taxpayers, or you have to figure out, do I have enough money in the reserve to do this again? And so it's good, but you just need to be aware of the risk.
No, understood, but particularly when you have a year where you're getting stopped with like an ERS.
I anticipate that the revenue plan that I give to Adam and you will use some portion of the ERS and TRS reserves, but I'm always very reluctant to completely lean on it because I won't have it again the following year. And then what do we do? It's not, the contribution rate is not going to drop anytime in the next few years. And in fact, I think it's probably going to get worse. So we need to be careful how much we lean on it. Not, yes, it'll fix this year's problem, but I'm trying to look 3 years or 4 years down the road to see where we end up.
And then in terms of our ability to submit to the state as to whether or not we're intending to be under the 2% cap, are we going to have a budget presentation with your plan for that before that's submitted?
The submission that has to happen to the state by the end of February, we only have one meeting in February, which is why I'm going to ask you to approve this calculation on February 7th, is because the state wants to see a preliminary look. You can, look, I don't think it should be my decision that this calculation going to the state. I think it's the board's
I
money, the
agree.
board's projection, which is why I asked the board to approve it. My colleagues in other districts don't necessarily do this, but I think it's an important step for accountability to the state. The state just wants to see a preliminary look about where we are. We're not going to know really for certain until we get up to the state aid, the legislature state aid in April to know whether or not you may not make the call on that until April. So the state is fine with you exceeding the cap. They just want to see a preliminary look on where you are if you do, or if you stay.
And historically, we don't get much benefit for a big state aid. They're talking about a big state aid increase, but that doesn't affect us.
It doesn't necessarily affect us, but I think there are a lot of factors at play that we don't know yet. We still have to have a look and see where we are in terms of staffing needs. We have to look and see where we are in terms of enrollment of students. We have to look and see what our sending districts are sending us. They also occupy a large portion of our revenue plan. So we need to see what they're planning on sending us next year so we can project where exactly we're going to stand. There's no way for me to stand here, even on April 7th, to tell you, yes, we absolutely will not, or yes, we absolutely will. The state doesn't care. They want to see this calculation by February 28th.
Do we have another budget meeting? I should look at the schedule. I could probably answer.
Yeah,
that
it's right
question.
here. There's only one meeting in February, and then the next meeting is in March. So again, the state doesn't handcuff you to say, if you indicate in your February 28th submission that you're preliminarily not planning to exceed the cap, and then you decide to, the state is fine with that, but the state is not fine with you saying nothing. So you have to file
Right, but
something.
I guess what I'm asking you, and we have generally had sort of, we've generally had sort of the budget overview, not so much instructional, but like basically the putting all of the pieces that you have here, plus some more, like on a, just look right there, okay, that's this budget presentation, superintendent's office. Is that gonna have the overview on February 7th of this is what we think?
I mean,
Before we get into the
Because I like to
presentation.
say, like, I don't like to do, I don't like to do, and it's our first year working together and everything like that. I think it's very helpful for the board to have sort of the overview that says, this is what we think it's gonna be, and then work backwards.
Right, looks like
From
March
that.
21st.
I mean, I could certainly
According
give
to
you
this,
a,
it's March 21st.
I don't think, my take is, and Sam and I have talked about this when we're doing what we're dealing with, and we've, in my experience with the budget, not only as superintendent, but even from principal, I have never seen more discussion away from, no offense, their minuscule budgets. I think the issues lie for us as a school district right now in the big ticket items. Our insurance and contract and contractual obligations. Again, and I say this with all due respect to their budgets, they're not gonna, nothing they could do and we could cut is gonna solve any of the issues that we could potentially have due to the health insurance and all these insurance increases. Now, remember,
Numbers is just so big.
It's so big. I had a conversation today with the chief operating officer with BOCES. They do a little visit. And when you talk about the increase this year of 1.2 million, it's Sam being able to pull that, because we did not budget $1.2 million. We had to pull from a variety of codes throughout the district. Now we know where that is. Now we know where our contracts are. Our contracts are pretty stable going forward, but there are some significant increases. I think by next meeting, we'll have a general idea kind of where we are.
I think we'll have a general idea, but I also think it's going to require some time. I could give you a more or less, estimated budget at the next meeting, but I don't really put a lot of stock in those numbers because they're going to change a
There's
lot.
still a lot of questions.
And I think I would rather, I think it's a lot of question marks, and I would rather have, I think the board needs to evaluate what the administrators are saying, and then input from Adam in terms of where we stand with the larger ticket items before we say, look, before I give you a budget and say, look, here's all the lines and we filled them all in. Well, a lot of these numbers could change. And so I don't want to tie us down to, well, we said this on February 7th. Yeah, but it's going to change significantly.
Is this the first time that we've done something like this, where we've given?
No, we always have to give that number every
The
year.
advance.
do it
So
every
we
year.
always get that
You-
number.
You've always done it. The board has not approved that
Right.
calculation before. And
Okay.
my personal opinion is it should. If you don't want to, that's your choice. I'll do it myself, but I do think you
Okay.
should.
Well, I mean, we're going off of your recommendations at that point anyway, because you're gonna tell us, well, health insurance is X and, the nicer is Y. So those calculations. The ones you don't know, you're giving us your professional opinion on where you think roughly it might be, but you could still be wrong. And I think that's why we have to reserve our right to pierce the cap if we needed to. And no
If
one
you
wants
need-
to
yeah.
say that or do that, and that's not our intention. But if we get a number, a question mark gets filled in a way we didn't expect it.
My recommendation to you is, sorry, let me just back up. My recommendation to you is we submit a calculation that shows that we're going to come right up to the line, and that's it. Because if you do anything else, unless you are 100% certain you're going to pierce the cap,
I mean,
you
this whole,
should not submit that.
this
And
whole
I'm not prepared to take that position. So,
no, sorry, this whole presentation is sort of like, why, I don't know why they want it, but it's not. Why do they even waste our time with it? I mean, that's my, if I can change my mind, what's the difference?
I've learned that it's best for my well-being to not question why they ask for certain things. and just leave it at that.
Yes, and I think you're probably absolutely right.
Look,
listen.
I totally recognize the fact that the board has the right to change its mind, and I support that. I also totally recognize the fact that the budget has so many, and as Adam said, all the stuff they're gonna recommend, it's
Yeah.
really, it's
We buy a
slightly
grand
larger than
piano,
a
it's not
rounding
gonna make
error.
us pierce the cap.
Yeah, it's slightly larger than a rounding error in the budget. You have a $77 million budget, all this stuff they recommend,
Right.
it's not gonna make or break us. So I'm glad that we're reviewing it. I think it's important for the board to see the kind of stuff we present, but I think we need to think about the larger picture of health insurance, pension costs, TAN interest, and stuff that are, and insurance
Beyond our
costs.
control.
Yeah, liability insurance that are completely under our control that we need. And, they're up everywhere. And for things that are within the control of the insurance company and things that are not within the control of the insurance company.
And I want the board to be, comfortable. If over the next week or two that, Sam and I start doing some preliminary calculations and we're, getting a scared and uncomfortable feeling, we will ask the board and request another meeting to start discussing issues. But we're not even remotely out there. Like I bug them every day. I'm like, what do you got? Where are we? But I am seeing, it's one day, it's like death by 1,000 cuts you used to talk about. Well, he cuts me every day. It's like, hey, nicer, 10% up, OCs, 3%, 5%, 6%. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
TRS up.
That's a great point. The
Right.
BOCES costs, which are normally under 2%, because their philosophy is you have to live in the tax cap. We will do our best. They are telling us that
You can't.
most services at BOCES are up 3.5% next year, except for students who go to BOCES for full-time special ed service programs who have one-to-one aides, and those costs are going up 4.17%. These are just incredibly
And
large
let me
increases.
point out another big thing.
Things that we can't control.
And we talked about, so we send kids to BOCES for vocational. That doesn't even matter. Now those increases are based on a 3-year rolling average. So no matter what, we could say, oh, we're only going to send 10 kids. Well, the price still is the exact same.
Whatever our rolling average is, it's somewhere in the 40s. We will pay 40 times, it's going to be about $15,000 a kid, whether we send 40 kids, 0 kids, or the entire school. This is a 3-year rolling average. So we know flat out, we are paying our, whatever that number works out to be.
Well, and this is, I think, you know, the thing, we talked about the tax cap being in effect for a decade. Well, these are some of the things I think that were concerns when they rolled it out. Yeah, 10 years ago, maybe you're okay. You know, 8 years ago, I think it was probably, we did pierce the cap the one time. And we haven't had to do it since, but when you have costs that you cannot control, how do you stay in that box?
Well, every
You know.
year we put up that little pie chart
Yeah,
and it shows the actual, over the years, the percent that we actually control as a board and make
it's
decisions
very
on
small.
has gotten smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
It was at like 10% last time, I think we checked.
No,
And, you know,
80%?
there's very little that we have discretion over.
Well, I understand that. Was it like 80%? We do or not? 85% we don't have discretion on?
No, you're
Yeah.
set in either, you're set in contracts that
But
can't
what's
be
the
altered.
percentage roughly?
Yeah, I think last time it was like maybe.
It depends.
I don't remember.
Depends how
Yeah,
you
it's
measure
like
what
somewhere around
control
10%.
is,
It used to
but
be
The
15.
bottom
have
line at the end of
almost
the day,
no
we still
control.
can't control it.
Right.
Right.
You know, I mean, what do you do?
But what I have found, and again, everyone's works differently in how
Sure.
they work.
Sure.
To me, it's always been really sensible to have as much of the big picture.
Yeah,
And I will
Upfront.
give you as much of the big picture.
I mean,
as I
obviously
can.
knowing that they're moving things, but we've known before, like, okay, here's what your delta is. You know, there's a potential $400,000 blah, 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 you know?
I'm happy to give you as much as I have, but I
No
just
one's gonna
want,
hold you to it.
no, and I appreciate that. That's very
I
kind of you.
understand.
But I
that
also
it
want to
works.
forestall a panic, because don't forget, I think people understand what the implications of budget overages are. And it affects program, it affects students, and it affects people's jobs. So I don't want to touch off a panic that may work itself out, which has been my experiences. It can look particularly dire in January. And then the state comes in with some money, and maybe one of our sending districts has increased the number of kids they're sending us. And I can paint you a slightly rosier picture in March. So I just want to be careful to not ruin people's
well,
months.
Yep.
Until we know more.
and I think I think also what you're saying also is that this is not this number in particular, in past business officials, we did not.
We never saw it. Yes, we absolutely
Yeah, we
did.
No, I'm not saying we didn't see it. No, wait, stop.
Yeah.
We didn't vote on it.
No,
Oh,
no,
no.
you don't vote on it. No, I'm not.
And that's
I'm
what
not
he's
we
saying.
didn't.
He's just presenting it just so that
Yeah.
we.
Well, but we've always had the.
Yeah, Isabel handed out like
We've
a
always had a
one-page sheet
conversation
that
with a
each time,
recommendation that we
yes,
agreed to.
Yeah,
Right.
he's
It
just,
wasn't- it
I think
wasn't a vote. We
I'm
could vote or
talking
not.
semantics. That's all
Right.
about semantics.
Right.
We knew, but it was done different. And that's what I'm not trying to say we didn't know.
Okay.
And as new numbers came in, she'd say, okay, I revised
Right.
it because, you know.
But I'm also
Just different style.
I'm just a big believer in saying before we're listening, understood, like, been doing this for 12 years, so understand that, you know, their budget is not gonna change. However, if we get to a point ultimately where because of all these things, the tax, we have to do a tax cap, that I wanna make sure the taxpayer knows that we reviewed
Oh,
all of
course,
the
yeah.
programs in that context, and you know what, like Kathy may not get those new, new things that she really wanted this year. You know what I mean? She may not get the, you know.
Pool's not happening in this year's
She
budget.
may
There are
not
no
get the
lights
pool
in
this
this
year,
year.
right, exactly. And facilities may not get the double scrubber this
Right.
year, I mean, it's just, and whether or not that makes, it's not gonna make the difference between, 2.5% and the 10. But I do think that one of the things that this board has worked really hard with, and I think done a great job with, is being very transparent
Yeah.
in the process, so that our voters know at the end of the day that we are presenting a budget that has been scrubbed and that does the best for our students. And if we go above or we don't go above,
And I think that's one of the
We
reasons why, Adam and I felt this presentation important today, because I do think we have to get into the public discussion, the fact that we have, presentation says 3, but now it's 4 major cost implications in our budget.
this is very
So-
significant.
Plus the ones we maybe don't know about yet, Then we get relief. In years past, we've gotten some relief. We may not get it this year.
Well, and also it hasn't happened in a number of years. So, I think like the community is, we've gotten a little bit complacent. Nobody's paying attention to what does the 2% tax cap really mean, because we haven't had to really worry about it. We've been fairly smooth for the past 6 years at least, right?
Yeah.
So if you go back to remembering whoever was here, like the first few years of the tax cap.
Yep.
Parents in the district, they knew what it meant,
Yeah,
Right.
did.
they
Right,
paid
did.
attention at that time.
You know,
So-
it's interesting you say that about, you know, the people haven't paid attention in a while. NYSER had a presentation today, a webinar for business officials, you know, across Long Island. And so, you know, I could see my colleagues' faces, and when they said 10 to 15%, people, I thought it was going to be a very negative reaction. I certainly had a negative reaction, but I think a lot of my colleagues are just so numb already to the huge increases that are out of our control. They're like, all right, another thing on the list. And, you know, I think that's what a lot of us are getting used to. Of we were able to offset a lot of our expenses in the past few years with some, you know, well-needed and well-deserved COVID money. The state has been generous to a lot of districts. The increases to some of these other things have been under control. I mean, 3 years ago, health insurance, you can see, if I can just back up here, 3 years ago, the health insurance increase was 2%, 1%, 4%. There's a big difference when the cost is 30 grand a year between 1% increase and 14.92% increase. So.
Sam, what are your colleagues saying at their districts? I mean, this hasn't even, you know, kind of come up in the superintendent's discussion. Usually it comes out from your discussions. Are you hearing, because if we're having this discussion and, you know, kind of.
No, nobody's there yet. I think a lot of folks are just like what I'm saying is there are too many question marks right now. We're trying to absorb all this. I think a lot of districts are having serious conversations about programmatic issues, staffing issues that, you know, that they need to take a look at. We're in a fortunate position. You know, our taxpayers have been extremely supportive of us, and we're in an excellent financial position. You know, I think that other districts that may not enjoy some of the positives that we have are having much, you know, making our conversation downright positive.
So if you had to just summarize again, the major pieces that are outstanding, it's state aid. What are the major pieces that are outstanding to sort of fill in the dots in the picture?
I need a state aid number. I need the BOCES cost in terms of the capital tax levy offset in order to finish that calculation. You can see, sorry, I keep flipping up and back.
No, it's helpful. Thank you.
I need a BOCES capital calculation, which supposedly is coming this week. We'll see. I need a state aid run to show me what our building aid is going to be. That'll allow us to finish the calculation there and see exactly where the line is. And then we need to take a, you know, and then, you know, at that point, we have all this, you know, sorry, gesture to you. We have their stuff in the budget, and then we can take a serious look about, you know, if there's any other remaining items we have budgeted for, and see how we want to impact programmatic changes. I know there's certain things we want to change, certain things that, you know, we want to add to the program, and see, or certain things that, you know, as you said, the example, maybe this is not the year where we can buy that scrubber or whatever it would be. Pick on my friend Greg, you know, and see what that impact is like. We'll see.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
You like the little kids better than this.
Yeah.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Sam.
I was gonna have Carrie set the
I
timer,
did it in
but
7
you
minutes.
didn't allow
No.
the question and
It's a
answer.
question.
Well, I have to say, I always like laugh in my time on this board. It's like, if we were talking about the Mad Hard Ball, we would have like this room,
Oh,
we'd
yeah.
have to open up
Yeah.
and open up the gymnasium, all right, or softball. But like,
But we
we're
only
talking
talk about
about the
millions,
budget,
tens
which
of
is
millions of
like
dollars.
everything, and like it's empty, so I do think it's important to take the time.
No
and
question.
push it.
Sam, was a very
Thank
informative,
you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Very
thank you,
good,
Jen.
very helpful.
Thank you.
not good, but informative.
All right,
Well, the not good part is not Sam's fault.
that's right. Moving on to news of the school.
Sarah?
Turn this on for the
thousands
Yeah.
of people watching at home. So I wanted to share with you our Rosa Parks mural. That each year the East End Arts Council does a community project honoring Martin Luther King. And typically the charge is for students to do a portrait of Martin Luther King. But this year they widened it to a wider range of civil rights leaders. And after much debate, our art students chose this portrait of Rosa Parks, which is her mugshot after protesting during the Montgomery bus boycott. And I think it's just incredibly powerful. I'm very proud of their choice and their execution of it. Each student paints a different panel, and you can see their names there. I also have hard copies for you if you can't see that. And it comes together, of course, to create the full piece. And the purpose of the mosaic is like the civil rights movement and its leaders, is to show the power that individuals have when they work together. So very cool. So this is headed to the East End Arts Council in Riverhead for display and auction. I have a hunch, I think I know who the highest bidder will be. And then hopefully if that works out, it will have its permanent home here. So I just wanted to share that with you. So we're really excited about it.
How many students?
So there were 16 who contributed. And their names are listed on the side, each of their panels that they took. So they each, yes, of course. So they each paint their own panel and then they put it all together.
Oh, sure.
And it's we did the Martin Luther King one last year.
Those are all, are those all high school, our high school kids?
Yes.
Yeah. It's our high school kids, yeah.
Yep, it's a combination of art club and then Heather Evans students and Margaret Zubarian students. Yeah. Super impressive. And I didn't think I could be more impressed than I was with last year's mural, but they have outdone themselves. So on another note, there's something really interesting that our students have initiated, and they are completely leading the charge with this. So Brianna Kaye and Dayreese Pena are two of our seniors who are bilingual, and they have initiated a bilingual peer tutoring program, and it grew very much organically. And they have just taken the lead with making it much more systematic. So the way that it started is they pushed into Michelle Barbaretti's bilingual math class because they happened to have study hall that period. And they were working individually with the students in that class, mostly our ENL newcomers. And that grew to them looping their peers into pushing into our math classes, to pushing into Lauren Bennett's US history class. They're now at a point where they have formalized their program and they are not only pushing into classes, but they also have about 10 to 15 students acting as peer tutors on Tuesdays here in the library for our bilingual students and particularly our ENL students who may need the extra support. They are, I spoke with Brianna this morning, and she was talking about how she has seen not only the academic benefits, but also it has really helped create a sense of community among some of our newcomers and helped to loop them into a lot of the extracurricular events that we've had. So for instance, just this morning, Brianna was talking about how she has literally seen an increase in involvement with our ENL students at Bonic Lights and Trunk or Treat, and we're hoping to sort of do the same with March Madness and PS I Love You Day and our events throughout the rest of the year. So it's just a really impressive thing because the students saw the need and then they worked to address it throughout the year. So it's been really wonderful. So that is happening.
So just a quick question.
Yeah.
This is so amazing.
Yeah.
So the kids that are leading the charge, who are the peer tutors, they have study hall or they don't have a class during that time, obviously.
Yes.
Or lunch or.
So
what
we
is
think,
it?
no, that's it, no, so they either have study hall that period, in Dayreese and Brianna's case, they may have a senior lounge.
Oh, okay.
Or they have lunch. And Michelle Barbaretti invited them in to help work with her class periods that happened to be the same period. That then grew to other teachers. They presented at our faculty meeting, Brianna and Dayreese, about that peer tutoring is available. And so then other teachers started to reach out and they did all the legwork in terms of scheduling, when students are going to go, they spread the word among their peers of folks who were interested in tutoring. And then they connected them with the teachers who were interested in the help in their classes. So it's really tremendous, like what they're doing. And
Does it
they're
happen only during the school day or is it
Well,
after school term?
they started during the school day, and then they're working right now to offer it in the library on Tuesdays after school from 2:30 to 4:30. Yeah, yeah, so it's been really successful and just impressive that they're doing that pretty much on their own. Although we are offering community service hours for it, which they advocated for, so. Which they should, as they should, yeah. And then we have been working through our DEI committee. We have met with Phyllis Cotner 3 times over the past couple of months, and we are focusing on cultivating pride in our heritage and cultures. And we're doing that through our just adding another layer of celebrating that to our existing structure. So for instance, adding, a Heritage Day to March Madness. So that is our goal for this year. And then we, of course, have, loftier plans for down the road. The steering committee has been working on the equity action plan, and we will be presenting that. Phyllis Cotner is going to be here with us on February 6th, and then working with our faculty in small groups on the 7th. So I have to commend them for their hard work. It's been great. Last 2 things, our jazz band has been invited to play with Nancy Atlas at Bay Street Theater on the 21st. So we are very excited. We're soon to be rock stars. And then Ina Garten is going to join our culinary classes on January 31st via Zoom, and to work with our culinary students. She's going to focus more on her, look at it from an entrepreneur lens. So everything that it takes to run her business, from her PR firm, to her shows, to her cookbooks, to putting all of that to finance. And so she'll also talk about her experience as a professional cook. So we are really looking forward to that, and we will record, we have her permission to record that presentation. And then we can show those to our 9th grade and 10th grade FACS courses. So a lot happening.
So would she let it, I imagine that there would be people that would be interested in it. to see
Yeah.
it. Would she let it be on our website? or
So
anything like
I
that,
don't
or
think
no?
she'll have an issue with that. She was perfectly fine with us recording it to show to our students. She's been incredibly accommodating, so I'm sure she'll be fine with that. Yeah, yeah. So we're excited.
Sam wanted to know if Jeffrey will be joining us as well.
I'm sure Jeffrey,
We can do the surprise.
I'll let you
Please
know.
don't.
Looking for Jeffrey.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
He'll be your Zoom moderator.
Sam, I thought you did a great job. Doom and gloom, but it is. I know. Well, just some topics from the past 2 weeks. Boys basketball is in the top of Division 4. Their next home game will be next Tuesday against Hampton Bays here. Girls basketball playing home tomorrow. The game is against Port Jefferson. They're playing the first game. Port Jeff doesn't have enough kids to play the second game for the JV game, so we're moving that one to the varsity game's gonna play first. So we'll play the JV game as a scrimmage, so our kids don't miss out on anything. Wrestling's last home match is tonight right now against Mattatuck and Floyd. It is a non-league, but it's giving our kids some more opportunities to get ready for the playoffs. Swimming's last home meet is this Thursday at the Y against Northport. Girls and boys track is doing really well. Our girls 4x4 just recently broke their own school record by 11 seconds at this weekend's Spanner game, and we're hoping that it will help them to qualify for the states. Bowling team is finding success on the lanes, and they are at Port Jeff today. Their next home match will be here on the 23rd. Here for bowling for us means Riverhead. Our bowlers get on the road every single day, whether they're going to the clubhouse or whether they're going to the lanes in Riverhead. And if you're ever in Riverhead and you feel like stopping by and watching our kids bowl, they will be there. Cheers working really hard, cheering for our boys basketball game. They also cheered last week at our girls basketball game in the St. Paint game, which was wonderful. And we started our late winter middle school sports today with good turnouts. Boys volleyball had 25 kids. We have a couple more kids interested. Girls basketball had 35 and wrestling had 20. Any questions? Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right.
That's it.
All right, good. So public comment. I don't know, did you ever get us on live, Jason? I don't think we did, so I'm gonna just say we have no public comment for anybody that wants to go, and there's no one in the audience to make a comment, so we will move on to superintendent's report and recommendation. I'm sorry, the consent agenda. My mistake. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Superintendent's reports and recommendations. Number one, recommend the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the Board of Education of the East Hampton Union Free School District pursuant to Rule 14 of the Suffolk County Civil Service Commission, and upon the recommendation of superintendent of schools, does hereby appoint Alcerado Fresa. I'm gonna guess that.
Yes.
All right. The position of automotive mechanic 2 for a probationary period of 26 weeks, commencing February 6th, 2023, and to be paid at the annual base salary of $61,170. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Any discussion? I know it's a long
We just got
anticipated.
another one, yeah, so we're all set.
Great.
So very good.
Awesome.
We're in a good
Congratulations.
position right now.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number two, recommend the board approve the following appointments for the 2022-23 school year and begin with the after-school inclusion recreation instruction pilot and going down to substitute custodial worker 1 and substitute paraprofessional. Have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
What, is that the, that's, Kathy, is that after school inclusion recreation instruction pilot? Is that-
That's a program we're running, that's special education. So we run it at the high school now.
Oh.
We have the Inclusion Rec Club. Now we started it, Karen and her teachers, Cindy, and then we had a discussion and they started it down at the elementary school. We had a little trouble finding, I would say, the amount of personnel we needed. You're dealing or working with kids with you know, some severe and disability. So we needed some extra adults there, one-on-ones.
And the supervision is a little different at the elementary level. At the high school level, the 15 and 16-year-old mentors in the Inclusion Rec Club don't need as much supervision as our 5th and 4th graders that
So
are
this is not
also.
sports, this is an after school,
Yes.
Yeah, no,
like
yeah.
recreation.
Yes.
Kind of program.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yep. I just wasn't sure if this was something in addition to like the inclusion sports program we were running. Gotcha.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number three, recommend the board approve the following grant funded appointments for the 2022-23 school year. And begin with grant fund appointments for professional hourly rate of $75.35. And goes down to grant funded appointment and professional hourly rate of $58 amended for a high school before and after newcomer support program. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number four, recommend the board approves the following resolution. You hereby resolve that the Board of Education accept the letter of resignation for the purposes of retirement for Daniel Hartnett for his position as social worker effective close of business day, June 30th, 2023. Can I have a motion?
I make it.
Second. Discussion?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for your service.
What a great service to the district.
Yeah.
And we, just so the board knows, we will do the same type of ceremony for all our retirees that get put in a retirement that comes through to you. In June, we will do the same type of ceremony we did last year, which I think was really nice and well received.
And on the same token, congratulations to Dan.
Yeah.
All
Well
in favor?
deserved retirement.
Absolutely. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number five, recommend the board approve the following resolution. Be hereby resolved that the Board of Education accept the resignation for the purposes of retirement from Joseph Lapani for his position as Oil Mechanic 3 and head school bus driver effective close of business day on August 31st, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I make it.
Second? Same thing. I mean, it's a
Thank you,
huge-
Joe.
Thank you, Joe. It's a huge
Wonderful
loss.
service. Yeah.
When I first came on the board, Joe was brand new and things were just a lot different back 10 years ago. And Joe has really done a great job. He's helped us tremendously with the new bus garage and setting up the auto mechanic program as well, and picking things out and, just keeping lid on things, but we really appreciate it, and congratulations to him too. Any further discussion?
Great job.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 6, recommend the board approve the following student trips for the 2022-23 school year, and beginning with the Build On student trip and going down to the student trip to Niagara Falls. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion. Second.
Second. Discussion?
These are all trips that were reviewed at academic level. They are all trips. These are not new trips. We have done these in the past before. Billy's taken the kids to Guatemala. And you can see on the bottom is C is Sarah is actually going to not have a snowstorm up when she goes. She's not going in June if it snowed out, just so you know. But they rescheduled that whole conference from November to that.
Yeah.
The day of the
Which we were
14th.
thrilled about because we
Yeah.
didn't want it to be canceled, so we're glad they were rescheduled.
Get back on the normal track again, hopefully.
Right.
Uh,
Could be dicey in March, but I'm not gonna lie.
Totally
Couple
gonna
up.
let- you never know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 7, recommended that the board approve the following resolution. A, whereas the district party to collective bargaining agreement with the East Hampton Teachers Association, you can read it on your own if you'd like. And I'll go resolve that there should be no changes to the existing contribution rate for those union workers, members who retire on or before June 30th, 2023. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
So I'll turn it over to Sam for a second, but we needed to solidify some stuff, contractual rates for soon-to-be retirees. These are people who have yet to retire going forward. It required board action. So Sam, you want to explain quickly?
Well, yeah, the contract with the teachers union and with the SRPA union has a provision in which the amount of money they have to contribute in retirement can change based on the board's, the district's decision to set the rate. These are 2 resolutions for these 2 unions to bring some formality to the rate setting for future retirees. It does not affect people who are currently retired, and it does not affect anyone who is planning to retire on or before June 30th of this year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And, it's always nice to work well with our unions. And Sam, I know, put a lot of time into it, Tim and Adam, and we thank all those folks for their time. Number 8, recommend the board approve the following consulting agreements for the 2022-23 school year. And it begins with A, consult agreement between East Hampton Free School District and Anita Boyer. And then down to number C, letter C, amendment, the consulting agreement between East Hampton Free School District and Phoenix House. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that supposed to be a 0? in
Yes, it
Phoenix?
was mistaken. For some reason, it was a number, a cost in the last meeting. It's actually at no cost to the district.
Okay.
It was a good amendment.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's nice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 9, recommend the board approve the first reading of the East Hampton Union Free School District 2023-24 school calendar. Can you make a motion for that? Have a motion?
Motion.
Second, discussion?
So the calendar is the calendar. So BOCES gave us the calendar, and with that, there was not much flexibility because BOCES was not changing the calendar as is. So, just your standard, calendar. The important thing is East Hampton will start the day after Labor Day again. And we have a variety of breaks in there and whatnot, but school will end in midweek, June 26th. This year, there are 3 built-in snow days, which in my eyes, I am planning on using 2 of them if it snows, and leaving 1 in my back pocket with the remote option if everybody agrees with that. Obviously, I think that's kind of what we did last year when we had 3 days. So,
Adam, I think it's important to note too that there's the difference with the spring break.
yeah, so you have spring break, you have high school and middle school people will like this. There's a nice little, you don't have to go through March without a day off because Good Friday is March 29th, and you will, March 29th will be without students and instructional staff, and actually district will be closed. And then Easter Monday is also off, but that's for instructional staff and students. So, and then you have a full spring break. 2 weeks later, you will have a week off in April 22nd through 26th.
Yeah.
Good. Any further comment? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 10. Recommend the board approve the following resolution. Resolve, the Board of Education of the East Hampton Union Free School District hereby accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $250 from a donor known to the Board of Education and to be used by the cafeteria program for students with outstanding debt. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Comment, it's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have anything else?
No, it's great. It was, they reached out to Sam and they came to a number, and that was incredibly nice.
There will be a few others at the next.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
yeah, a few more little.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. What else do we have left? New business, old business, nothing? Good. All right. Robert, do you have any public comment? Nobody's made a comment, so I guess we don't.
No, there's nobody on the line for public comment.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Move.
Thank you very much.